As we approach the election of 1992, the Commission on Presidential Debates is looking pretty solid. They got George H.W. Bush to debate under the new rules by giving his party and the Democratic Party all the power over the rules through memorandums of understanding. The Commission on Presidential Debates has solidified itself not as a power in presidential debates, but as a shell that the two major parties can fill with whatever they'd like. But they're about to experience some growing pains with a couple of issues. One, kind of put upon them by their philosophy of what their role is as a bipartisan, transitioning to a nonpartisan commission on the 4-year ritual of presidential debates, and by bowing to popular opinion. They're going to make two mistakes in 1992. One of them we're not going to have to deal with probably ever again. And the first one we're going to have to deal with for the rest of time. I'm talking about both the introduction of the town hall format of debating, very important thing to understand in the history of presidential debate, and why third-party candidates are not permitted. In the election of 1992, billionaire businessman Ross Perot was polling extremely well nationally, and the Commission on Presidential Debates thought it warranted his inclusion in the debates. This was only agreed to by both parties because the Republicans and Democrats set the rules for the debates, and the Perot organization, which eventually became the Reform Party, was not invited to those negotiations. In fact, Perot was selected so late to participate in those debates that he didn't really have a chance to talk about what would be permitted or not. He just joined in on whatever the Republicans and Democrats had provided. Ross Perot is a third-party candidate. It's weird that they would have included him, but they're never going to do it again because what happened was he threw off the nature of the presidential debate format. Although the Commission on Presidential Debates today says that any third-party candidate could participate in the debates if they polled over 15% nationally, or showed that they could get electoral votes or would do well in a House of Representatives runoff vote, then if they had evidence of that, they can participate in the debates. Which is ironic for a couple of reasons. First of all, there's really no research that says the debates have any impact on voter behavior. We've already seen in some of my other videos how these beliefs about the presidential debates and who did well and who didn't really impact a lot of the election results. The only person you could say maybe is Reagan, but there's so many other factors that are a much better causal or correlative argument there as to why Ronald Reagan did well in those elections that the debates would be maybe 20th on the list as something that might tweak the numbers just a bit, but not move the lever. But the real reason, I think, is because of Perot's ability to speak in a way that the debates don't account for. He had a lot of memorable moments in these debates. Here's a couple.
And you don't care about anything but making money, there will be a giant sucking sound going south. So if the people send me to Washington, the first thing I'll do is study that 2,000-page agreement and make sure it's a two-way street.
Mr. Perot, if you were sitting at home now and just heard this exchange about Arkansas, who would you believe?
I grew up 5 blocks from Arkansas. Let's put it in perspective. It's a beautiful state. It's a fairly rural state. It has a population less than Chicago or Los Angeles, or about the size of Dallas and Fort Worth combined. So I think probably we're making a mistake night after night after night to cast the nation's future on a unit that small.
Why is that a mistake?
It's irrelevant.
What hit?
You know, now, yes,
What he did as governor of Arkansas is irrelevant?
No, but you can't, I could say, you know, that I ran a small grocery store on the corner, therefore I extrapolate that into the fact that I could run Walmart. That's not true.
Now, the first clip is from the 1992 Richmond Debate, which is the first town hall debate, and that's where he has his famous quote about a great sucking sound, talking about the North American Free Trade Agreement and how terrible of a deal it was going to be for the United States. This is like shades of Donald Trump rhetoric done in a kind of a different way. Donald Trump was elected president, as we all know, and he renegotiated NAFTA, but critics debate whether or not NAFTA is significantly different than it was in the 1990s. The second clip of Perot there is him speaking at the third debate, where he's just kind of showing that he's not interested in filling out the time. And Jim Lehrer, the moderator, doesn't really understand what to do because Jim Lehrer is used to a certain kind of response. What rhetorical response has Jim Lehrer slack-jawed? Well, it's the lack of rhetorical response. These events, as Perot proves, are designed for the parties to create sound bites for their candidates. This isn't debate. This isn't engagement or exploration of issues. Ross Perot's not interested in sound bites. He's interested in making his case. And that's all he's really doing, is sort of engaging it in the way he thinks it's a debate. And he's engaging it in a way to kind of make the arguments and say, well, that's it. Let's move on. And Jim Lehrer and everyone else involved in the commission kind of doesn't know what to do with him. So they don't want a person like that in the debates because it ruins it for both parties. Both parties can show the clips of their candidate performing extremely well as they want to, probably because nobody's going to watch a 90-minute event of one of these things where it's just kind of the candidates bloviating on their own positions and not really engaging each other on any substantive reasoning or questioning one another's evidence or anything like that, like you would get in a theoretically justified debate. Famously, Ross Perot only showed up 30 minutes before airtime and went to both dressing rooms to say hello and came with only one other person. The other two campaigns had their whole staff there, had put their candidates in full makeup, and were practicing the big lines of the night that they knew would circulate on the morning news the next day. This just reveals totally the failure of the Commission on Presidential Debates to offer anything that would be useful to us. It's useful to the candidates, useful to the campaigns. It's not very useful to us as voters. We've seen it all before. So I think that the commission will probably never again offer a third party to come in. Here's a couple of other issues about this. This format, the town hall debates, was brand new.
Now, tonight's program is unlike any other presidential debate in history. We're making history now, and it's pretty exciting. An independent polling firm has selected an audience of 209 uncommitted voters from this area. The candidates will be asked questions by these voters on a topic of their choosing, anything they want to ask about. My job as moderator is to, take care of the questioning, ask questions myself if I think there needs to be continuity and balance, and sometimes I might ask the candidates to respond to what another candidate may have said. Now, the format has been agreed to by representatives of both the Republican and Democratic campaigns.
So as you can see, they don't even really know how to shoot it. They don't really know how to put the people there. And they had over 200 people in the audience, and only a few get to ask their question. A third-party polling organization, Gallup, selected the people. And today they do it in a very kind of a different way. They still use Gallup, but they select a lot less people. And it's a lot less freewheeling and a lot less talk show format than what you see there in that opening. George H.W. Bush, who should know better, gets caught a couple of times in some cutaway shots. Take a look.
It's a government that's not serving you. By and large, it should be local. The more local, the better. Interesting phenomenon. Small towns have good schools. Big cities have terrible schools. The best people in a small town will serve on the school board. You get into big cities, it's political patronage, stepping stones. You get the job, give your relatives the janitor's jobs at $57,000 a year, more than the teachers make, and with luck, they clean the cafeteria once a week. Now, you're paying for that. Those schools belong to you, and we put up with that.
Now, something as innocuous as checking a time or looking at your watch wouldn't be such a big deal, but it was communicated symbolically because of the fact that these are presidential debates that Bush wasn't really paying attention. He was kind of checked out. He wasn't connecting and maybe didn't even really care to be there. This fueled a narrative in the media that George H.W. Bush was out of touch and that he was not really interested in being president. He was not very interested in the people, not very interested in what was going on in the issues. Contrast that to Bill Clinton and the way Bill Clinton talks about being there.
Get wound up because I feel
Yes, you do.
Let me say first of all to you that I believe so strongly in the question you asked that I suggested this format tonight. I started doing these formats a year ago in New Hampshire. And I found that we had huge crowds because all I did was let people ask questions and I tried to give very specific answers. I also had a program starting last year. I've been disturbed by the tone and the tenor of this campaign. Thank goodness the networks have a fact check so I don't have to just go blue in the face anymore. Mr. Bush said once again tonight I was going to have a $150 billion tax increase. When Mr. Quayle said that, all the networks said that's not true. He's got over $100 billion of tax cuts and incentives.
Now, Clinton kind of shows us his hand here because the town hall debate was something that the Clinton people suggested to the Commission on Presidential Debates, and the Republicans didn't really know what they were getting into. They thought it would be kind of a casual discussion of the issues or a candidate forum. Bill Clinton had used this format many, many, many times in his presidential race, but also as governor of Arkansas. So he was very comfortable with being in front of the crowd. He knew how to speak to them, and shades of Ronald Reagan, he's kind of going for Reagan's title here. He is really mastering how to speak to a crowd and a camera at the same time. Bill Clinton's still not the GOAT, in my opinion, because he snuck this format in, a format he designed with his campaign, and now it's a part of the Commission on Presidential Debate's normal rotation. The second debate will always be a town hall debate, pretty much every time from now on. And the format is, I'm not exactly sure why it's so popular, but I think at the initial time Clinton liked it because he felt it gave him a strategic advantage for creating sound bites, which is all the major parties want to do with presidential debates. And I think on the Republican side, they agreed to it because they thought it was innocuous. It really did show that there need to be tighter memorandums of understanding for both parties. And now we have extremely tight town hall debates that once in a while only have something weird happen.
Governor Bush, you may answer that if you'd like, but also I'd like to know how you see the differences between the two of you, and we need to move on.
Well, the difference is that I can get it done, that I can get something positive done on behalf of the people. That's what the question in this campaign is about. It's not only what's your philosophy and what's your position on issues, but can you get things done? And I believe I can.
All right.
What about the Dingell-Norwood bill?
All right, we're going to go now to
I'm not
another...
quite through. Let me finish.
All right,
the
yes,
question.
go.
I talked about the principles and the issues that I think are important in a patient's Bill of Rights.
So that was a clip from the 2000 town hall debate where Al Gore inexplicably stands up and walks over to George W. Bush, and George W. Bush reacts in a pretty good way. He's better than his father at these presidential debates, that's for sure. The Richmond debate is a pretty chaotic presidential debate. There probably won't be another one like it. It's worth watching. You get a lot of scenes that you can see have been edited out later in future presidential debates of this type, precisely because they want it to be a soundbite generating engine, and doing the town hall debate the way they did in 1992 doesn't really permit that between the two parties. After this, the power grab would continue. In 1996, Ross Perot would run again, and the commission would establish its 15% rule, or House of Representatives rule, where basically if you're not polling above 15% nationally and don't really have a chance of winning any electoral votes in any state, you're not invited. This excludes all third-party candidates, which was the goal of the commission from day one, and the goal of the parties since asking the League of Women Voters to host. No more third-party candidates, town hall debates forever. These growing pains might have tanked the Commission on Presidential Debates, but there's one last major change they make after the 1992 debates. They stop identifying themselves as a bipartisan Commission on Presidential Debates and switch to the non-partisan Commission on Presidential Debates, further trying to cement themselves as a neutral organization that hosts political debates of value to citizens. It is not the case. In the next video, we'll look deep at the Commission on Presidential Debates, really up to, and think about maybe some alternatives to this bizarre ritual that now you have pretty much the full history of its inception.